Welcome to MedSci Mentor. In today's video, we're going to go through MCAT Studying, specifically how to focus your studying on knowledge gaps. So this is for anyone out there that's been taking multiple practice tests, has gone through the content, but just can't seem to get their scores up. And I think one of those reasons for that stagnation of the score is that you're not studying the material you don't know, these knowledge gaps. So the first thing is kind of going over what a lot of people do, which is spending a majority of their time reviewing large concepts through chapters or through their notes, as well as taking full practice tests and sections. The problem with this method is that you're spending a lot of time on the knowledge you do know and not a lot of time on the knowledge you don't know. So we're going to go through how to fix these and the problems with these methods. So the first one, the problem with this way of studying is that if you're reading through the source material, it's taking a long time, it's a lot of material, and you actually already know probably a good portion of it, so maybe 60, 70%. So you're spending 60, 70% of that time reviewing things that you didn't necessarily know, and most of us are time limited. Another big one is that you're not putting the tension on the gaps that you don't know because your extensive notes, most people when they take notes write most of the material down, so then you're just rereading basically the chapter again and you're not spending the time on the knowledge you don't know. The problem with practice tests, you see a lot of advice out there or a lot of people just going through multiple practice tests over and over again. And it makes sense that if you're going to try to do well in an exam, you should take as many practice tests as possible. The problem is if you think about what you're really doing, what you're really practicing is test endurance. Are you able to go through section after section and maintain yourself, kind of how you practice for a long run is doing longer runs? Maybe anxiety during the test. It's helping you kind of get familiar with it so that way you're not too anxious when you do the test. And then a big one's timing issues. So if you're having a problem hitting that timing, then going through practice tests may help. The problem is, though, if you think about this in terms of any other aspect of your life, let's say you're trying to train for a marathon. If all you're doing is taking practice tests over and over again, it'd be like training for the marathon doing practice tests over and over again. If you have small parts that are the problem, maybe your footing or when you're running, your form is wrong. You need to fix those in a different way than just practicing the actual test over and over again. So instead, we're going to show you a method where you can focus mainly on knowledge gaps, shoring up those areas where you're missing them on the test in a way that makes logical sense. So how you're going to do this is going to be tutoring mode on online practice tests or just checking the answers in the back of the book. The point here is that you're going to go to a practice section or practice test, practice question bank. You're going to take an individual passage one at a time. You're not putting out blocks of them. You're not doing multiple in a row. You're doing one question, one passage at a time. As soon as you read a passage or a question and you hit something that you know you should know, but you don't know it. So for instance, it might be a hormone. It might be an equation for kinematics. It might be how to do levers. It might be stoichiometry. As soon as you hit that and you're unsure of what to do, if you're unsure of your knowledge in the area, this already indicates a potential knowledge gap. Go ahead and finish the question that you're on. See how well you do on it. If you get it wrong, that definitely indicates a knowledge gap. But even if you didn't know all of the answers and you got it right, you really should go review this. So the point here is that you just used a practice passage to both practice taking it, which is great, but now you just identified a knowledge gap or a weakness in your thinking of that material. So maybe you thought you knew it, got it wrong, and now that's just not even a knowledge gap. So if you believe you got the question right and you got it wrong, that's not only a knowledge gap, but it's actually where you have misinformation. So you have some type of information in your head, the way you think about it, that's leading you to the wrong answer. You didn't even not know the answer. You thought you knew, but you were incorrect, which means you need to go through and fix that. So a lot of problems people have is they associate two things together and flip them. So maybe if you got one hormone question wrong, let's say you didn't know what LH was. FSH is very similar, so luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone. Maybe you switched those two definitions. So you really need to go back and make sure that you get them right in terms of the right place and make sure that you understand them in the context of everything together. So you need to immediately after getting a question wrong or finding a specific area that you have incorrect, then you go back to your notes and your source material. So this could be if you're using any prep books, it could be notes, you could Google it, but the point is that you've just identified a specific knowledge gap. So here's just like a simple diagram. If your knowledge is most of the knowledge that's there, so the orange thing is all knowledge period that you need for the MCAT, and then the blue is your knowledge. The orange is really where you're missing your points. The problem is that a majority of people are spending their time in your own knowledge. You're reviewing things from your own notes. You're reviewing chapters. You're focusing on things you already know. But you really need to be spending a majority of your time in this knowledge gap. If you use this method, instead of taking full-length exams, if you immediately correct it, and you have to identify exactly why you missed that question. So you need to be honest with yourself. If you missed that question because you thought you understood it, but you were completely wrong, that's a different way of missing it than if you just didn't know the material. Or if you did read it wrong, maybe you read a question prompt wrong. The problem with practice tests is that by the time that you get back around to reviewing them, you don't know why you missed it. If you just took a 4-hour exam and you got to the end of it and then you review it the next day because you're burned out, the problem with that setup is that now you are not knowing why you exactly missed a question because it's a day ago or 4, 6, 7 hours ago. So you really need to do this at the same time that you took the question. So it should be question, review if you missed anything that's in there or have any knowledge gap, next question. Not separating out studying from questions. That way you can live within this knowledge gap area. This is also another important topic where if you did miss something, like let's just say a hormone problem, or maybe you don't know what a ribosome is, or maybe you don't know the circuit equation for current, that indicates a larger knowledge gap. So you missed a small topic, but that small topic you missed is normally an indicator of a larger field around it that you don't know. So if you missed something on kinematics, you should review all of kinematics, or a good portion of it. If you miss amino acid, most likely you don't know multiple amino acids, so you should go back and review them. This way, every question you miss now becomes a very, very focused review of the small knowledge gap that's around that individual topic, and you're going to really start shoring up what you're missing and really start fixing your foundation of the knowledge. The last thing we're going to go through today is how to effectively take notes. And this is, again, everyone has personal preferences. Everyone does it a different way. I know myself personally, as well as a lot of the students I've worked with, is that we like to write down everything that's important in a chapter. This is what you do when you highlight the entire thing or write down everything in a book. The problem is that 80% of a chapter most of the time is important information, which makes this long. It takes a long time to take notes. This is why some people take days to read a single chapter. Right? If you've ever been in that situation, it's tedious. Your hand starts cramping. You're having this huge notebook now. You don't know what to review. Instead, the big concept that I've come up with in terms of just working with students, it's a natural idea, is only write down what is important and you do not know it, right? So it's that big and there. So instead of having 80% of the material you have to write down, now you're only writing down what's important and you do not currently know. Now you'll have 20 to 30% hopefully. So now you just changed your note-taking from you going through all of the material that's for the MCAT to specifically tailored for you. And this is why sometimes getting study guides from other people isn't useful, because if you're doing it this way, it's specific to you. Your notes are the 20 to 30% of material that you yourself don't know. Not what somebody else doesn't know, but it's what you yourself doesn't know. So thank you again for watching this video. I hope this was helpful. Good luck with your MCAT prep, but just remember in summary, don't just take practice test after practice after practice test. Do it in tutoring mode, answer the passage and the question, and then immediately correct any problems you have with that material because that's the knowledge gap that you have. Expand a little bit out from that so that way you're getting the surrounding material. And then when you're taking notes, really try to focus on the things that are important but that you don't know. So please comment down below if you have any questions, tips, or suggestions for future videos. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. We're going to be putting out more content more frequently in the near future. And we're also looking to produce a type of podcast so you guys can listen to this rather than having to watch a video when you're walking around or doing something else. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and thank you again.